This is Julian, and this is Julian's food. It's called Crested Gecko Diet, or CGD for short. A powdered blend of fruit and nutrients packed with everything he needs. But there's just one problem. Julian hates it. And so today I'm going to redesign the packaging so good, so irresistible, that even Julian can't say no. Now, in order for us to design for a Crested Gecko, we first need to become a Crested Gecko. I need to see the world through their tiny googly eyes. What makes food look delicious? What colours are appetizing and what fonts feel trusting? Only then can I create packaging worthy of my little King Julian. So, what do Cresties like? They enjoy climbing on things they shouldn't, staring dramatically into the void, and launching themselves off objects in the most graceful manner. But most importantly, they love fruit. Julian loves a little nibble on mango, banana, papaya. If it's sweet and sticky, he's interested. And so if I want him to trust my new food packaging, it's gotta speak to his little fruit-loving, chaotic little soul. Okay, so we're definitely incorporating fruit illustrations into the packaging design. And if I draw these looking irresistibly juicy with these little glossy droplets, we should be onto a winner. And perhaps we could also bring a sense of home into the design. New Caledonia, 750 miles east of Australia, no end of vines, branches, and leaves. So we have a juicy jungle looking blueprint for the base of our design. Now we need a name that ties it all together. We need something that makes you think of either exotic fruit, lush greenery, or perhaps catching a little bit of that goofy gecko energy. Right, I've narrowed my list down to two favourites. First up is moonfruit. Crested geckos are crepuscular creatures, which means they usually eat at night, as this is the time when they're awake. So moonfruit obviously indicates when they'd be eating their little fruity sauce pots in the middle of the night when the moon is shining. One problem with this name, however, is that it sort of hinders more towards a darker sort of lunar colour palette with deep purples and blues and blacks, whereas we kind of want to approach it with that sort of exotic, green, chaotic, playful gecko energy. Which is why the name we are going for is, drumroll please, Lick and Stick. Let me explain. So Cresties are notorious for stepping their little frog-like feet into their sticky food pots and walking their footprints all over the gaff. And the lick part is because they mostly eat their food by little gentle licks. And it's adorable. So Lick and Stick is perfect. Okay, let's bring our vision to life. And so I began my design by essentially just creating all different leaves, which I could then bring into the packaging design later on. I wanted to be able to seamlessly just drag these leaves into the design for a more natural workflow, so I made sure to create a variety of different leaf shapes up front. Then, once I was happy with various options, I drew this banana with the pen tool and then experimented with a coloured gradient aesthetic, which was then followed by some more fruit. But this is all quite boring, so let's move on to the gecko design. Now, initially I had the idea of creating a cute cartoon gecko mascot to represent the brand. However, the more I worked on these chibi style illustrations, the more I started to reconsider. While they were undeniably cute with their big exaggerated expressions and features, the simplified style just felt a bit lacking in depth. So I decided to experiment with a more realistic approach, using a reference image of a crested gecko and converting it into a vector style illustration. I traced the overall body shapes with the pen tool and then freehanded the rest of the design, which gave me this stylized yet realistic gecko look. I found it really helpful to design the illustration using solid block color layers, as this then allowed me to easily add and refine details by stacking layers on top of each other, such as the base layer serving as the bulk of the gecko's body. Now, since crested geckos have many unique features compared to other geckos, I needed to make sure I captured all the distinguishing traits, such as the crests on their head, their long fabulous fleeky eyelids, and the strange distinctive tooth-like patterns around their mouths. Since this is a food product, I thought it would be fun to include the gecko's tongue with this fruity sauce on it, and this ended up fitting really nicely into the final design coming up. Once I was satisfied with the gecko illustration, I moved on to adding some finishing touches. I created these monochrome gradient overlays, which I converted into a grainy texture to bring some extra dimension to the design. By layering these textures on top of the illustration, I was able to subtly enhance the depth and shadows, which helped the design from feeling too flat. This technique added a really nice, almost tactical feel to the overall look, giving it a more polished mixed media style that made the illustration feel much more visually interesting. Okay, so we have our gecko illustration, and yeah, it's quite cool seeing it on this page in all its various stages. Obviously, we started with it looking quite 2D and flat, quite a clean, minimalistic style, and then we've just gradually added more and more texture and shadows until we now have our final design. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. So I think it's about time we start the actual packaging design, so we need to find a suitable mock-up for our product. And for this I'm going to be using Envato elements, and as you can see we've got a whole array of mock-up options. So I'm actually in the process of applying for an affiliate link, but at this point in time I'm not sure whether or not there will be a link in the description or not. But if there is and you guys did want to check out Envato elements, then using my link would help me out massively. So yeah, feel free. Okay, so I really like this one, so we're going to go ahead and download it and then open it in Photoshop. Now all I've got to do is just open this smart layer, and then we want to save this canvas as an image and then open it in Illustrator. Okay, cool, so now when we design our packaging, we know anything outside of this box is going to be cut off in the final mockup. My design concept involved using a sunset image as the background, creating vibrant oranges and yellows. And then when paired with the leaves, these colours would complement each other quite nicely. This image also tells the story of how, now the sun is setting, the little Crested Gecko is coming out above all of the treetop canopy. Okay, so this space is calling for a nice big logo, so I think it's about time we design one. Alright, so I've been sketching out some rough logo concepts, focusing on a more bold sort of stacked style with the N acting as a divider between the two words. I've also experimented with incorporating a tongue into the design to add a sort of playful touch that reinforces the lick concept. This could add a sense of motion and personality to the logo, making it more dynamic and engaging. And so using my sketchbook as a rough reference, I'm experimenting with different variations of the stacked layout. From the start, I knew I wanted the text to have a bold and playful, yet slightly rounded style. Something that felt confident but doesn't take itself too seriously. I initially explored ways to integrate a tongue into the design, interacting with the text in different ways, but it never quite felt right. It started to feel a bit forced, almost like I was trying too hard to tie in with the word lick. I even considered forming the letters themselves using the tongue, but it still wasn't working in a way that felt natural. Given the time frame I set for this project, I realised that properly incorporating the tongue would take too much time, and ultimately I was really happy with how the type looked in this rounded warp style anyway. While designing, I also reminded myself that plenty of fun recognisable logos are purely text-based. Since the main focus of my design was always going to be the colourful packaging, I felt confident moving forward with this concept. I decided against using the gradient on the leaves as I wanted the design to feel more bold and brave, which led me to also swapping out the background for a solid colour too. And at this point I was at quite the crossroads because I liked both of these styles. Now when I look at both these designs, the blue one's definitely exciting me more. It just feels more confident and creative than our initial design, so I think I'm going to explore the blue one going forward. And so I went with the blue design, as it just felt like it had more creative freedom. I decided to get a bit abstract and transform what was originally the sunset into this bold circular shape, which is now drenched in sauce pouring over the top. I wasn't entirely sure what it would turn into by the end, but visually it just felt fun and interesting. Honestly, I was fully winging it at this point, but sometimes that's when the best ideas come together. I figured if I add some layers to the sauce, giving it these 3D drooping effects, I could really start bringing the design to life. It felt like a cool way to add depth and texture, making the whole thing feel more dynamic. Plus, I was hoping this approach would guide me towards something cool and unique as I kept refining the design. Now that I had the banana drawn, I thought why not take it a step further and throw some sliced banana chunks into the sauce. Not only did it add to the playful dripping effect, but it also gave me a cool way to represent different flavours across the product range. Each version could have its own unique ingredient mixed into the sauce, making the design feel more dynamic while keeping it visually cohesive. However, I eventually decided that while I liked the idea of the banana slices, they just weren't looking right, so I imported an image of some actual banana slices for reference and started creating vector-style illustrations. I made these using solid shapes just like I did with the gecko. This approach helped me give the banana slices a cleaner and more consistent look that fit better with the overall design. Now the flavour was looking a little bit too banana heavy, so I added a couple of berries in there to balance it out and convey that the product was actually all about bananas and berries. The previous banana illustration just didn't match the 3D style I was going for, so I decided to bring in a big sliced banana into the foreground. Since it was going to be one of the top 3 focal points along with the gecko and the sauce, I knew I needed a lot of detail to really stand out and make an impact. This project was definitely one of the most illustrative ones I've done in a while, and I was really enjoying the process. It was so satisfying to watch each object come to life as I added more shadows, depth and texture. Now when I decided on the name Lick and Stick, I already had a pretty clear vision of how I wanted to tie in the branding with some fun design elements. I knew that I wanted these little gecko footprints to be part of the design, adding a playful touch and suggesting that the food was being walked around by the gecko's feet. So I created a little pattern in the background of these footprints which gave it a quirky, organic feel. And then to make it more interesting, I added some refinements like misprinting a few of the footprints, as this would show the food trails leaving a sticky mess. So it's coming together well, but it does just feel a little bit boring. Like, besides the colours, the design concept itself is quite boring. We just have a static banana and a gecko. And I just feel like creatively we could create a more sort of compelling concept. So I think I'm just gonna go back at it again and switch on my creative brain and try and create something a bit more fun. This decision really transformed the final design. I ended up ditching the static banana slice and decided to scatter the banana slices all over the packaging instead. And then to amp up the energy even more, I added these sauce trails at the end of the slices, almost like they were rocket flames propelling them through the design. This gave the packaging a whole new level of excitement, turning into something that felt alive and fun. Now, throughout the design process, I knew that I really wanted to include an actual object inside of the circular shape, but I couldn't quite figure out what would work, until the idea of an Earth illustration popped into my head. At first, it didn't feel like it would quite fit into the overall concept. But that's when it hit me. What if I flipped the banana slices so they looked like they were falling down like massive banana meteor chunks from space, crashing down and splattering sauce everywhere? This idea let me finally incorporate Earth into the design in a way that made sense. And it turned it into this huge apocalyptic banana extravaganza where everything was just chaotic and fun. Once I had that idea locked in, all I had to do was add the product information, things like stating it was a Crested Gecko diet, the flavour, and a couple more bits to tie it all in together. And with that final touch, everything felt like it was falling into place, and the design was complete. Okay, so we transformed this really boring, dull gecko food packaging into this, a chaotic, colourful banana explosion with falling banana meteors, sauce trails, and a playful apocalyptic vibe. It's bold, it's fun, and it really brings the energy of our product to life. So I really like it, but the only opinion that actually matters is Julian's. What's he gonna do? Is he gonna jump and take to the packaging, or is he gonna just turn his head in disgust? That was a lick. That was a lick. I'll take that.